Those don't fly.
I saw the mental deliberation.
For what?
The see the cogs turning in your head whether or not you should throw it.
Oh, yeah.
Red Bull. Small partner.
Yeah.
You just drink coffee for now?
For now.
Nice. How's it treating you?
So far, so good.
I'll take those. I have a question for you about being on air.
Okay.
How do you find your voice? Do you just
Oh, cool. Good.
kind of dial your personality to 11, or do you just kind of speak clearly? Like, because obviously you don't talk
What do you when you say voice? You mean actual voice, or do you mean persona?
persona, I suppose.
Um,
Is that just something you find over time?
Pretty much. It's taken a while.
Mm. I don't know what direction I want to go in here. Because I can do either what like fits the show, or I can do what fits me. You know?
You should always. Well, you should be doing what fits the show for now. I mean, whether that be this show or anything on 104.5
Yeah.
or whatever. When you're building out your own show, it's a little bit different.
That's true. I know what kind of personality would fit this show. That's what I'm trying to go ahead. Just curious. Complete collision will be the first thing you do.
Okay.
This is a weird thing for me to say on my screen. Can you imagine the future of this entire multi-billion-dollar sports industry was determined by people drawing out of a hat? Not like an NBA draft, but like they drew names out of a hat. Blows my mind.
It's crazy.
Learning to defend myself. Sopranos is on HBO Max, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna start watching that. I'll give you my updates on how I'm feeling about the show. I'm sure you find that interesting enough.
Apparently, I missed a lot in the movie.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, a bunch of people came back at me yesterday saying what about this? What about this? What about this? Ton of there's a lot of stuff that I noticed, but I didn't feel was important, and they emphasized it. And then there was other stuff that was like Easter eggs. Oh, yeah. .606 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP Mornings with Brian Haldane is off and running. Good morning, everybody. Brian here with you. Jake Barty producing. We got a busy Tuesday for you today. First of all, did everybody survive without Facebook for about 12 hours? Everybody okay without Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp for about half a day? That's on the rundown, by the way. Haggai Davis is going to be by for a cup of tech gumbo, an emergency cup of tech gumbo. To close out the show, 8:35. Haggai will be in. Actually, let's go ahead and run down the rundown. Run down the rundown.
That
yes,
made sense.
It did. Jonathan Bydlak from R Street is going to hop on board at 6:50. Talking about the infrastructure package. Where was it left off at? Where will they pick up at? Will they pick up? Where will it go moving forward? Always look forward to talking with Jonathan. Always look forward to or always appreciate the relationship with the folks over at R Street. In the 7 o'clock hour, Adam Knapp from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber is going to hop on board at 7:15. We will be talking a little bit about business in Baton Rouge. Then pollster John Couvillon at 7:35. Why? He put out an article, was it yesterday or day before? Reading the tea leaves for the 2022 midterms. Yes, that's right. The 2021 election is a month away, which would roughly mean the 2022 midterms are 13 months away. Curious to see how things are playing out already, though. There's already a lot of information to be garnered. There's already a lot of polling that's been done. Approval ratings are in the tank for a number of politicians. What does that mean for 2022? We'll talk with John Couvillon at 7:35. In the 8 o'clock hour, really looking forward to this one. There's a new book out called Russia Upside Down. Russia Upside Down. The author, his name Joseph Weisberg. He's a former CIA officer who also created the TV series The Americans. Have you seen The Americans? If you have a little bit of background knowledge about how intense this is expected to get. The fall of the Second Cold War. Where are we in getting out of a second Cold War? Joseph Weisberg at 8:15, then like I said, Haggai Davis at 8:35. But bringing us back up to the lead this morning, I got to tell you, I didn't miss it. Facebook was down for a little while. I tried to post one thing on it. That was like the extent of my missing out on Facebook yesterday. It was a global shutdown. The conspiracy theories abound, and I love them. What, you're telling me Facebook just happens to go down the day after a whistleblower goes on 60 Minutes? Yes. Yes. Or no. Ooh, so much intrigue. I did not miss it. And had it lasted longer, had the duration lasted even longer, it would have been even better. Open it up. It's not there. All right, fine. Most recent post was 20 hours old. Okay, fine. I'll come back later. We'll try again. In the meanwhile, I don't have to participate in seeing half of my news feed, hate the other half, and vice versa. After going through having Facebook down for that period of time yesterday, I would venture to say we should do that once a month. That was great. Let's just do that once a month where we just put it all down. Yeah. Put it down, step away. How nice would that be? Not sharing articles about how evil the left is or how evil the right is. Just once a month, everybody just steps away. In fact, you could use that time to go do real life so that when you come back to Facebook, you have something to post about, from your life. What do you think? Anybody else on board with this? One day a month. Let's just put the Facebooks down and go out and real life things for a little while. In the meanwhile, the whole thing's a big conspiracy. So we'll talk with Haggai Davis about it before we get out of here, before the show's over with. All right, we're coming up on our first break. When we get back from that break, Tell the Truth Monday was yesterday. Ed Ogeron was at the microphone. Such as it is. We'll have audio next. Good morning, Renee. Everything from... .658. Sorry, 6:15. Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. I was looking down at something. 6:15, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. It's sports time. Actually, before we dive into sports, got to remind you about the folks over at Complete Collision. Nobody likes getting into an accident, but if you find yourself in an accident, it's important to know where you're to take your car before allowing the insurance company to tell you where to take your car. I recommend Complete Collision Center. They have a commitment to training, a commitment to excellence, a commitment to continued education to make sure that they are certified by more than a dozen major car manufacturers and have the iCar Gold Class certification. I tell you every day, they've got a location on Plank Road up in Zachary. I also tell you about the location on Perkins at Bluebonnet, Perkins just east of Bluebonnet. I actually had somebody yesterday ask me this, so I need to clarify. The location that's on Perkins, the physical street address is on Perkins, but you got to go up Capitol Court to see them. That street next to the Shell station is called Capitol Court. If you turn onto that street and then look to your left, you're going to see Complete Collision right there. Their physical street addresses for that strip mall that's in the front, which is on Perkins. So 2 locations, one on Plank Road in Zachary, one just off Perkins Road at Bluebonnet. But you get the same commitment to knowledge and service at both locations of Complete Collision Center. Don't let who you choose to repair your vehicle be your second accident. Check out CompleteCollision.com. All right, Tell the Truth Monday was yesterday. Ed Ogeron had a lot to answer for. He summed up a lot of it with his opening statement.
We had a great meeting this morning, our staff, Tell the Truth Monday. I want to say this first. Ultimately, I'm responsible for the performance of this team. Yeah. I've always been responsible, and I always will be. First and foremost, I want to get that point across today. Things that we need to fix on offense, pre-snap process, our run game, we need to be more physical. Red zone, very disappointed. We were very disappointed in our performance in the red zone and third down. On defense, obviously the containment of the quarterback, rush lanes, and how to tackle quarterback. Though we had some tremendous pressure on him, but give him credit, he made some tremendous plays. And also, when we're chasing the quarterback, we have to stay in coverage. We call it plaster. We need to work on that. We can't get out of coverage. Eye discipline on a man-to-man and third down. But overall, I thought we had a great meeting with our staff this morning. We have a great meeting with our team today. There's some tremendous leaders on this team. On offense, Keyshawn Butte is doing a great job of leading us. On defense, Damone Clark is playing outstanding, great leader. We're going to count on those guys this week.
Yeah, I don't know who else would fall into that category. He says he's responsible for everything that happens on the field. Well, yeah, of course you are. You're the head coach. That's how it works. Even the stuff that's out of your control, you're still responsible for because you're the head coach. Anyway. One of the things I haven't understood all offseason and then through the beginning of the season, everything we heard last year was the problem's not the offense, the problem's the defense. The problem's not the offense, the problem's the defense. Miles Brennan was throwing for ridiculous numbers of yards before he got hurt. TJ Finley was throwing for good chunks before he was replaced by Max Johnson, who was doing a phenomenal job and throwing for great numbers of yards as well. The offense was not the problem last year, and yet for some reason at the end of the season, the offensive coordinator was let go just like everybody else. Well, as you're bringing in 2 guys who are completely green, never held offensive coordinator posts before, what about maybe bringing back Steve Ensminger to, kind of guide them along, be their mentor?
Yeah, that's a thought. That's a thought, and that has been considered. I think Steve is enjoying his retirement, and he does come. He does come as a consultant, and maybe he will come in the box. Might be something I'll talk to him about. Good idea.
To be clear, that wasn't him answering me just then. I was sampling the question from yesterday.
What are you talking about? He's in the studio right now.
I know. It sounded so wonderfully aligned. But yes, someone did ask that question yesterday, and I've asked it repeatedly throughout the offseason. If the problem wasn't the offense, why replace the offensive coordinator? Why be in such a rush to change everything? Well, maybe bring him back. Here comes Fox Business Report. It did.
In my fantasy league, I'm with it's a 10-team league with some of my best friends from college.
Mm-hmm.
And as of right now, I'm 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not deserve to be 4-0 at all.
Okay.
In about half of my games, I've had absolute stinkers for my team. But they've outstunk my stench. So it's like a battle of the trash.
Gotcha.
But then the other 2 beats.
We didn't play this week because one of the guys in the league set up a Thursday night only thing for Jacksonville and Cincinnati, and put us at $50 for the game, and we're all trying to manage $100 over the course of the season. So like half the guys that play, just like I don't have enough money in my account.
Jeez.
So we're gonna see if we can't refresh some folks and get started again.
I mean, that's what happens when you price them out.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going all in, you know, the other hand's gonna fold. Tired of swimming in these shirts. I've got to get new clothes. Morning, Renee. Morning, Clint. What's happening, y'alls? Hey! Oh, so good. And I can't share any of that. Oh, so good. Whew. What's up, Clint? Just realized I'm logged in the wrong account. Oh, well. Oh? All right. I'm going to roll up sleeves. This shirt is just way too big. Friggin' swimming in this shirt. Yeah, it is. It's just a really, I love this shirt. Very lightweight. Did not come from Haspel. Came from Harper's Haberdashery. My guy Sam Willard over there. That's my two places. Online, Haspel, and real life Harper's. All right. 625, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. So, if you've been following the news in the Baton Rouge cancer fighting world, Mary Bird Perkins has been making a lot of waves, teaming up with One Oncology, making a number of announcements over the last couple weeks, and doing just phenomenal work, because they do, over at Mary Bird Perkins. But their neighbors, longtime partners, Our Lady of the Lake, no shortage of great work there either, which has left a lot of questions after what seemed like it was a split, but you were only hearing from one side of the equation. Well, now you're hearing from both. Our Lady of the Lake Hospital in Baton Rouge, and you're going to hear more about this in our news at the bottom of the hour, announced its plans to build a $100 million cancer center right here in Baton Rouge. President and CEO of Our Lady of the Lake, Scott Wester, says site selection is underway. They expect to break ground on the Cancer Center early next year.
And the new facility is expected to include more than 80,000 square feet of clinical and support space that will be directly connected to the Regional Medical Center to provide ease of access to a full suite of services for all cancer patients.
Now, the lake's been partnered with Mary Bird in the past. I mean, they're right next door to each other. They're like nestled within one's campus. It's like looking at Tulane and Loyola down in New Orleans, you know. It was announced in August Mary Bird's going to be partnering with One Oncology. Wester says the new Our Lady of the Lake Cancer Center will provide total state-of-the-art cancer care, just like with their former partner.
Included in the new facility will be medical and surgical oncology physician practices, chemotherapy infusion centers with dedicated pharmacy, advanced imaging and diagnostics for treatment, and on-site outpatient pharmacy.
The 80,000 square foot facility is going to include literally every aspect of cancer research, treatment, and care. When finished, it will employ hundreds of medical professionals and support staff. Governor John Bell Edwards was at the was present for the announcement, which came yesterday. He says this will eliminate the need for cancer patients to seek treatment out of state.
Having world-class care right here in Baton Rouge at this new facility is just going to be a tremendous asset for not just Baton Rouge, but for our state.
No, totally it is. And having more than one is going to make that exponentially better. Having Mary Bird Perkins doing the amazing work they do, teamed up with Nashville-based One Oncology, is going to make them better. Having Our Lady of the Lake move into the space on their own is going to make them better. And as a Baton Rougean, we are just served in a better way because you're going to have multiple different outlets to choose from. And by the way, we haven't even heard from Oxnard or Baton Rouge General about where they're headed. But when it comes to fighting cancer, what's going to end up happening is everyone's going to find their niche, right? Everyone's going to find their niche and serve that niche within Baton Rouge. It's to watch this play out in the coming years. Baton Rouge is going to end up being have great benefits from this. Namely in that you won't have to drive to Houston to go to MD Anderson for everything under the sun. I mean, there might be some things where you'd still have to, but for the most part, our market is going to grow within itself because of this. We can get somebody from Our Lady of the Lake on to talk about it. We had Mary Bird Perkins on when that announcement was made. And throughout the entire interview, it was just bubbling around in the back about what happens with Our Lady of the Lake. In fact, I asked at the time, I said, what happens with Our Lady of the Lake? And they said there will be some level of continued partnership from that time till now that's totally dissolved. The only weirdness about this is going to be the fact that they're still, like, living on property. This is like Vince Vaughn and Jennifer Aniston in the breakup. You can't break up and still live there. Especially if Our Lady of the Lake's going to build a whole new facility. Tell you what else it means, though. That whole medical district, it has evolved at a ridiculous pace. Take, for example, Our Lady of the Lake Children's, among everything else that's in there, but the evolution of that area, that Essen Lane, the Blue Bonnet, the Hennessy, the Picardy area, the evolution of that over the last decade or so has been ridiculous and will continue to be ridiculous. All right, we have to take a break here in just a second. We got CBS News coming your way. We've got our own news, which we'll have more on this story as well. We'll check traffic. We'll check weather. When we come back, COVID numbers continue to trend in the right direction, though. There has been another child who has passed due to COVID. We'll dive into that and a little more. Also, still to come this hour, let's talk infrastructure with Jonathan Bydlak from R Street before we get out in the 6 o'clock hour. Adam Knapp from the Chamber and pollster John Couvillon in our next hour. Right now, though, we're running you up to CBS News here on Talk 107.3 FM. Don't forget, download the all-new Talk 107.3 mobile app. Presented by Gregory Ricks and Associates. Listen live, listen on demand. The Talk 107.3 mobile app, presented by Gregory Ricks and Associates. Good morning, T-Bob. And what login did you mean to use, Clint? How was day 2? Excuse me. What? There it is. Ah. I like the crown in your logo. That's pretty cool. Oh, I gotta get my calendar. Yo, give me one more second. I'll be right back. My apologies. Dawn. They. Thank you. Scusi. Scusi. What's my next live read? In this segment? Okay. Yeah, it's back into the segment. .638 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. So let's talk COVID for a little bit. We haven't talked COVID in a while, and by in a while I mean since yesterday. A lot going on in the world of COVID-19. A lot going on with the fourth surge. A lot going on with the Delta variant. A lot going on with vaccinations. Let's start with the fourth surge. You know, a week or so ago, a little over a week ago, I guess it was a week and a day, Governor John Bell Edwards extended the mask mandate by 4 weeks. Got mine in my pocket. It's not doing me much good in my pocket. Got my mask right here. Extended by 4 weeks, which means we're all supposed to continue to wear them until, close to the end of October. Over the course of the last month, we've seen a remarkable number of drops in COVID patients in the hospitals, COVID patients on ventilators, and new cases. Though it is worth noting the number of new cases was still ridiculously high until very, very recently. The state does not report COVID numbers over the weekend. So when you see Monday's numbers, you kind of have to divide by 3, right? Because it's not just Monday's numbers, it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday numbers. Yesterday, the numbers came out, 1,725 new cases, 39 new deaths, and there's never going to be a day where any death is acceptable, much less 39. And the number of COVID patients in the hospital dropped by 120 and change over the weekend, down to 715. The clip that we're on with reduction in new cases and reduction of patients in the hospital is worth noting on many, many levels, not the least of which is when you look at going back to the mask mandate. Now, the question there becomes, if not the number of patients in the hospital, what is the governor looking at when it comes to the mask mandate? Well, a big chunk of what he's looking at has to do with gating criteria that involves percent positivity or percent of new cases per 100,000. And give me just a second. My computer's having trouble downloading the full dashboard. We have 6 parishes in Louisiana right now that are no longer at the highest level of risk when it comes to those cases per 100,000. Just 6 out of 64. But it's worth noting that there are 44 parishes statewide that are on a downward trend. So when the governor's looking at gating criteria and his team, I'm not going to call him a committee because, you can't govern by committee in a crisis that lasts going on, 20 months. But when you're looking at the gating criteria and you see a map of Louisiana and it's all red, you're going to be hard-pressed to call off any kind of mask mandate. When you start to see some orange or yellow on that map, things start to change a little bit. So we're more than a full week into the extension of the mask mandate, which means we got about 3 weeks to go. And between the numbers, where they're at, and the level of participation in society in general, which I think if we're all going to be honest with ourselves, has dropped off the table. Between those two factors, I can't imagine this current mask mandate extending beyond where it's at right now. Extending beyond the end of October, or 27th or 28th of October, whatever the official last day is of it. Two more COVID stories before we move on. One of them we'll have again in Top Stories and Trending, and that is Louisiana reported yet another child died from the coronavirus. This child is the state's 18th to die from the coronavirus, or to have died with the coronavirus. We can't know which for certain, and I'll tell you why in a second. Back to the story. On Monday, state health officials confirmed a child between the ages of 12 and 17 died over the weekend. The state last reported a child no older than 4 years old died last week. The Louisiana Department of Health says it's the 9th pediatric death reported in the state's 4th COVID surge, which began over the summer. Within the statement, though, when you read the statement, one of the things you're going to read is, the child was between the ages of 12 and 17. No further information will be released on this death. This is one of the areas where we continue to run into a problem with deaths of children, especially when it comes to COVID, because we have no idea what extenuating circumstances there were here, and nor should we. Medical privacy is medical privacy. But I want to ask this question. If you've got 18 deaths of children, which, side note, is out of over 115, 120,000 overall cases, we've got 18 deaths. If you've got 18 deaths of children, you report on that because it should alarm parents that this is very dangerous to children. So if you're reporting on the death to sound the alarm, shouldn't you also be reporting whether or not there were extenuating circumstances here? Other medical conditions that contributed to that death? Shouldn't, if you're reporting on 18 deaths, 9 since the beginning of the 4th surge, if your whole purpose is to say it's time to start taking the Delta variant seriously because it's affecting kids, it's time to start thinking about getting your kids vaccinated because they're not immune to this like they were previously, shouldn't you also at least put everyone's mind to ease as to whether or not, or just the clarification level of it, as to whether or not there was anything involving comorbidities with the 18 kids or the 9 who have passed within the 4th surge? By the way, 18 children have died from COVID since the beginning of the pandemic. 117,896 have had, who are 18 and younger. I'm sorry, 17 and younger. 117,896 have had it. I don't want to do the math on that because when it comes to our kids, we have to throw the math out. If you want to figure out the percentage on that, have at it. But when it comes to our kids, it's like a hurricane season. It only takes one for it to be serious for you, right? Same thing there. Anyway, getting back to the level of severity of the 4th surge. Where we're at right now, the numbers continue to look good. Anecdotal story aside. The other news story was Johnson & Johnson has now asked the FDA to authorize COVID vaccine booster shots. Johnson & Johnson previously a one-dose shot. The one-hitter COVID quitter. The pharmaceutical giant Johnson & Johnson has requested for the boosters. According to CNN, the company announced news of its request today, adding they're leaving the decision of who should get the boosters and when in the hands of the FDA and the CDC. So add Johnson & Johnson to the mix. All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk with Jonathan Bydlak. We're going to talk infrastructure a little bit with R Street. Jonathan Bydlak from R Street will join us. Hey, before we take that break, though, got to ask you, if we're talking about COVID, did you put on some COVID pounds? If you're looking at the calendar for a good time to diet in Louisiana, there is none. You just got up and do it. I've been taking part in a program called Go Slim Nutrition. They are located on Blue Bonnet at Perkins, right next door to Rouse's. And I got to tell you, I am about 9 pounds away from my goal weight overall. I'm down close to 50. Actually, right at 50. And it is due in no small part to the accountability that they offer at Go Slim. You go in every week, you weigh in. You sit down, you talk about what you've done right and how you could do better. They've got fantastic food, bars, shakes, meals. Check them out online at GEAUXSlimBR.com. Give them a call at 763-9627 or just swing by. Blue Bonnet at Perkins for Go Slim Nutrition. I should have pushed that back till after the break. Okay.
Because I might be able to cut it right before it hits traffic, do your money now, and then go right into traffic.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Okay. Got to get you to traffic right after your money now. Want to tell you about the staycation promotion still going on. Take our staycation survey at talk1073.com. You can be instantly registered just by taking the survey for a staycation at either the Watermark or Renaissance Hotels. Yeah, back to that. Once you start traffic. Ba-ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba. No, it's Washington, D.C.
Hi, Jonathan. This is Talk 107.3. Mornings with Brian Haldane. How are you doing? Doing well, thank you. We're going to be live momentarily. Are you ready for us? Awesome. We'll get you in momentarily. Please hold.
Yep. .653 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. So last week we narrowly avoided a government shutdown. It wasn't narrow at all. It just came down to the last minute because that's how it's got to play out if you want to sell it back in your district. We narrowly avoided a government shutdown, but there are still problems lingering. Infrastructure hasn't passed. The latest $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, still a possibility. And oh, by the way, there's that nagging little problem of the debt ceiling. Joining us now to talk about that is the Policy Director for Governance over at R Street. He's Jonathan Bydlak. Jonathan, good morning. Welcome back to Talk 107.3. How are you, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for hopping on with me. Okay, let's start with the drama that was. Did you ever have any doubt that the government was going to stay open after last week?
Sure. I mean, I think it was relatively unlikely because I think it was clear that both sides were basically, playing games, but neither really wanted to go and have a shutdown and be blamed for it. So, the odds were relatively low in the short term. But I can't say I'm too surprised with how things panned out. But that possibility was always there.
Technically, yes. I just don't see either side just pushing all their chips to the middle of the table, saying we're all in. Let's just do it. Shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
That's just. But every problem that was on the table is still on the table. Let's start with
right.
Let's start with the debt ceiling and where we are with that right now, because I am a conservative, but I also understand that you don't run up all your bills and then walk away. I mean, this is like, hey, I'm a conservative, but we also carry Dave Ramsey on the station. I mean, you got to pay your bills once you've run them up.
Yeah, that's it. I think there's this myth out there that somehow if we don't raise the debt limit, that it's gonna solve the problem. That we're gonna reduce the size of government, and unfortunately, that's not how it works. I mean, exactly to your point, right? You can charge up that credit card all you want, but saying you're not going to pay it doesn't really go, and it doesn't really make you no longer have to owe what you've already spent. All it does is makes you think twice about getting your money in the first place, which. Look, there are, in my view, I guess there are right ways to try to reduce government, and there are wrong ways, and the wrong way to do it is through mechanisms that end up potentially causing far greater harm to people than otherwise would be the case. And so, I think that the debt limit debate is kind of a red herring. It's not really, it's not really about reducing the size of government.
No, it's not, but it should be, and I think there might be a problem with the phrasing, because when you talk about raising the debt ceiling, to the average person, that just sounds like, oh, you want to extend our credit limit. You want to go out and get a second credit card so that we can go max that out, when in actuality it's about paying off the first one.
Yeah, I think that the history here is actually really interesting. The debt limit in the U.S. was actually created in 1917 as a way for Congress to essentially allow the Treasury to issue more debt without getting congressional approval. So, in essence, the debt ceiling was actually a mechanism to enable more debt, not less. And today we think of the debt limit as this check on, growth in government, but it's actually not what it was intended to do at all. And, for that reason, virtually no countries around the world have a mechanism like this. I think it's Denmark and maybe Poland are the only two. And what most countries that have some sense of fiscal responsibility do is they say, look, we're going to put a cap on spending based on how much revenue we expect to receive. So they actually stop it on the front end, right, and say we're going to reduce spending or we're going to put a maximum spending limit rather than saying we're going to not allow you to borrow anymore. And to me, I think the evidence is very clear that those kind of mechanisms are much more effective at restraining government than the debt limit we have in the United States.
How big of a pipe dream is it to think that could play in the United States?
Well, on the one hand, sure, it is on the other hand, you think about some of the countries that have these mechanisms. Sweden, for example, in the 90s, we think about socialist Sweden. But Sweden was facing an entitlement crisis in the 90s. And they went and they imposed this fiscal rule as a way of kind of getting their house in order because they didn't have another choice. Second example is, look at the state level. Colorado has perhaps the most famous example and has been really effective. Colorado actually will go and refund people tax dollars if they keep spending reasonably low. So, I would love to have a mechanism like that at the federal level, and I think many Americans would too. So, obviously, it's difficult given our political situation, but there are places that might be even less likely than the United States who have done so.
All right, I'm taking a little note here. Lean on socialist examples to push fiscal conservatism. You realize you just made heads explode. We got 60 seconds left with Jonathan Bydlak before we got to hit news at the top of the hour. Jonathan, got to ask you about infrastructure, where the package is at right now, and the likelihood that we see it in its current iteration actually make it through the process.
Yeah, in its current iteration, probably not. It's been very clear, both Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin have said that they're not going to vote for a $3.5 trillion reconciliation package. On the other side, the progressives are only willing to vote for, the $1 trillion infrastructure package if they also get confirmation that they're going to get a vote via reconciliation on the $3.5 trillion. So, there's an impasse right now. Obviously, the president's been on Capitol Hill trying to go and convince Democrats to unify. Republicans aren't willing to give them any votes. At the end of the day, I'd be surprised if some sort of infrastructure package doesn't pass. But I think that the reconciliation package, at least as it exists now, is incredibly unlikely to pass.
I think I'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who would be opposed to actual infrastructure making it through the process. He is Jonathan Bydlak from R Street. We always appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Here comes CBS News. Debbie says, how much does the U.S. owe for vaccines? The pharmacy companies are not given for free. No, they're not given for free, but it's if you're looking at the overall debt, it's a drop in the bucket. But if you're looking at so Franz was up here yesterday recording Go Rouge, right? And he's like, I'm going to get my booster shot. I was like, no. You're going to get your first booster shot. Make no bones about it. As long as they can keep pushing that for free to us. Make that a booster every 6 months. Speaking of which, why don't we see that with the flu shot now? Can our flu shots be free at this point? Just dump them in with all the vaccines. It's the same shit. Although I got to tell you, when it comes to a booster or A flu shot. Well, I've always been a proponent of the flu shot, but I'm moving very quickly into the camp of I'm holding out till you pay me. Not you personally, but the shot at 100 programs got me stupid mad. All right, let's see what we got percentage-wise. All right. Just give me the stupid answer. %, 1%, 1/10 of 1/100th of 1%. Yeah. Add insulin and blood pressure medication to the list. Yeah. Although when you do that, you open up a Pandora's box to other health concerns being the overall health concerns for all of us. And you're going to have to force people to lose weight. Which I would have no problem with. We've got 2 trending stories today. Mm-hmm. Normally we just have 1 trending story. Gotcha. Hell yes. 7:06. Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Thanks again to Jonathan Bydlak from R Street for hopping on to talk a little bit about the debt ceiling. That was a fast 7 minutes. Nonetheless, I appreciate his time. I'd say it doesn't, like, R Street has been such a phenomenal resource. They're a free market-based think tank out of Washington, D.C. They don't lean to the right. They don't lean to the left. They often sound like they lean to the right because they're free market-based. But on a day like today, it doesn't sound like they lean to the right simply because, well, raising the debt ceiling is, you don't jack with the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, of the U.S. Treasury. Any Hoosers. Lean on socialist examples to push fiscal conservatism. If you took nothing away from that last segment, take that away. That was good. It'll be available at talk1073.com a little bit later on in the morning. Still to come this hour, we're going to talk business in Baton Rouge with Adam Knapp from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, and pollster John Couvillon going to join us at 7:35. It is never too soon to start looking at the midterm elections. Yeah, we're 1 month away from the 2021 election. But what's going to happen in 2022? John Couvillon joins us. He's reading the tea leaves, as the headline for the article reads. Right now, though, it's time for Top Stories and Trending. Let's get it. I'm going to start off by looking ahead beyond 2022, actually. The state may temporarily shorten the work week for government workers in the capital area to help lighten traffic while crews widen I-10 through much of Baton Rouge. This is interesting. Construction on the long-awaited I-10 expansion, which will add a lane to both directions of I-10, will have crews widening the roadway between Highway 415 and the 1012 split. It's slated to start in 2023. With the area being prone to backups throughout the morning and afternoon commutes, state officials are already looking at ways to ease traffic on the interstate during the construction phase. Now, the advocates cited key government officials yesterday saying the state is considering staggered work shifts and having staffers work from home 1 day per week. One of the other options on the table would cut state employees' work weeks down to 4 days at 10 hours a day. I'm wondering, why not just do this? I mean, if traffic's bad enough now, why wait for construction before you look to help it out? That makes sense in my world. Story we talked about last hour, Louisiana reported yet another child died from the coronavirus, or died with the coronavirus. We don't know which, marking the state's 18th child that has died tied to the virus since the start of the pandemic. Yesterday, state officials confirmed a child between the ages of 12 and 17 died over the weekend. The state last reported a child no older than 4 years old died last week. Department of Health says this is the 9th pediatric death reported in the state's 4th COVID surge, which began over the summer. The statement said, in part, the child was between the ages of 12 and 17. No further information will be released on this death. That's worth noting simply because we don't know about comorbidities. We don't know about pre-existing conditions. We don't know what other health concerns. I do need to note, though, that we've had 18 children, 17 and under, who have died of or from or with COVID-19. We have had 117,986 kids be diagnosed with COVID-19, so that is 1/100th of 1%. Baton Rouge Fire Department investigating more arson. Firefighters were at a gas station when they noticed a house fire that turned out to be the work of an arsonist. The incident occurred last night on Choctaw Drive. First responders with the fire department were at the gas station on the corner of Choctaw and Greenwell Springs. They noticed smoke coming from houses a couple blocks away. Firefighters followed the smoke to the 6500 block of Greenwell Springs, where they found 2 homes on fire, flames consuming the back porches. They went to one of the homes, along with a bystander, began knocking on the door to alert anyone inside. One person came into the house, was checked by EMS. The other house was vacant. That fire was extinguished as well. All in total, You had the two houses and a combined dollar loss, or separate dollar loss, $20,000 worth of damage on one, $50,000 on the other. Our Lady of the Lake is building a new $100 million cancer center in the capital region. We had a little bit on this story last hour. Mayor President Sharon Weston Broom was in attendance Monday afternoon, as was Governor John Bell Edwards, when they announced plans to build a new freestanding 80,000 square foot facility on their campus. The groundbreaking for the building is scheduled for next year. Quote, treating cancer takes a team, and bringing every talent together is what each patient deserves. Our decades of experience and leadership, our physicians and experienced cancer teams, along with the depth of specialty services at Our Lady of the Lake, are the backbone of this exciting step, said Scott Wester, President and CEO of Our Lady of the Lake. State Senator Cleo Fields is calling for Lieutenant Colonel Doug Kane to be placed on leave following the agency's failure to release his communication involving the Ronald Green case. State police attorneys told our news partners at WBRZ on Friday that communication via email and text messages are part of the federal investigation. Ronald Green, of course, died in May of 2019 after leading state police on a high-speed chase. Initially, state police told his family he died in a car crash. However, leaked body camera video showed Green was alive and apologizing after he exited the car. Cleo Fields says it's not a good look to have someone with his rank at state police under investigation. Could be an even worse look if the agency lied about the investigation in an attempt to not release records that news media have been requesting. That's a look at your top stories. We've got two trending stories this morning, and Jake gets to learn a little something about why in just a second.
Let's hear it.
The first trending, I said, just a second. Calm yourself, sir.
I'm excited. Come on.
All right. The first trending story. Boldly going where a lot of people have already gone before. How about this? Space. The final frontier. That's better. William Shatner's preparing for his voyage to space via Blue Origin. The actor who portrayed James T. Kirk is journeying beyond the terrestrial to the final frontier. 90 years old, William Shatner's going up into space. The journey will be a total of 11 minutes in length. This is going to happen on October 12th. Our other story. Now, there's a rule on this show. It's the shark-alligator rule. If there's a story about a shark or an alligator, it's going to find its way into the show somehow.
Okay.
All right? Now, normally we only have one trending story, but to introduce you to the shark-alligator rule, we take you to St. Petersburg, Florida. An alligator attacked and injured a homeless woman after she fell into a Florida canal on Monday. The woman was resting on a seawall, as you would, and fell into the canal. St. Petersburg Fire Rescue said in a news release. Someone heard the woman's cries for help and called 911. The woman, who's in her 50s, was taken to a hospital with severe injuries to her arms. She was reported in stable condition. Authorities from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission said a trapper captured the alligator, measuring nearly 11 feet long.
Jeez.
Yeah, the alligator's since been euthanized. The Wildlife Agency uses professional gator trappers for their nuisance alligator program. This combines so many things that make the news here. There's an alligator. I'm going to report on it.
It's Florida.
It's a Florida woman. And who doesn't nap on a seawall? Like, really? When I'm done here, I'll go find a good seawall to nap on.
As you do.
And that's top stories and trending. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk to the Baton Rouge Area Chamber next. Adam Knapp should be calling in. When he does, please get a couple of talking points. Ask him what he wants to talk about today.
We'll get you live momentarily. Please hold. Thank you. By the way, I'm trying out like a new workflow.
Okay.
Already posted hour one.
Good. Good.
As soon as I find free time, I think I could just knock right through it. Post-production used to take me like an hour and a half. Now it's taking me 30 minutes.
Good. Good, because get ready for that to completely change in a month or so. I believe that. Okay. Well, no, and the reason for it is we've got to make more use of. We up? 717 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Time to welcome in Adam Knapp. He heads up the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, and he joins us now. Adam, what's happening this morning? How are you, man?
Brian, good morning.
Good morning. We've got a lot going on, statewide, nationwide, but let's bring it back to the capital region to talk a little bit as well. The Chamber's got a lot going on right now. Y'all have a cybersecurity event coming up. Before we dive into anything else, tell me about this event and why now is more important than ever when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yes, I'm sure this is common to most organizations. We at our organization are constantly fighting, phishing attacks, folks that are sending, very strange emails. You see a link that's fake. All these things are risks to us as a business, risks to everybody that has those experiences, and we've seen when companies can get locked down and lose their data or have their data locked up. It happens in Baton Rouge. It happens everywhere. This is, if you didn't know, National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and then in keeping with that theme, we felt it was important to host our monthly lunch around the topic of cybersecurity. And so Venue, the folks that operate the Rev Broadband Data Center on Florida Boulevard, connection to the Louisiana Technology Park, Venue Solutions General Manager Noah Boudreau is going to come on and talk about what he calls the future of cyber offense and the need for companies not only to be prepared but to be on the offensive to protect themselves and to push against these attacks and be prepared for them. And as well, you can find a lot of resources online, both at LED and at some of the other national sites like the CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. All of this is trying to help companies be smart about how to prepare and to be ready for these kinds of attacks. So we'd invite folks to come. Our event is on the 12th, coming up. It'll be at the main library. Folks can register online at brac.org/events, and it's 11:30 to 1. It's a lunch. We'd love to see folks out. And, of course, it's always just good networking. Folks like to just catch up with each other and meet new friends. So it's part of the reason for the event.
Okay, so the term cyber offense has me curious, to say the least. Can you elaborate on that, or do we have to show up to learn more about going on the offensive with cyber?
It's really it'd be better for you to come to the event to do it. But he
Okay.
talks about the challenges that you face as a business and how business and technology leaders have to be prepared to develop their own strategies to do it. It's really, in many ways, a clever way to describe kind of an effective and intelligent preparation for your businesses to be prepared for what's happening and what's going to come.
Fair enough. And this is something that, it affects all of us, regardless of, even if you tell your boss about a phishing attack and he says, call me when there's a duck hunting attack, which may or may not have happened in the hallways here. It does affect all of us on all levels, and no one's really immune from it. We talk about it in our Tech Gumbo segment every week, and it certainly applies to every business out there. Y'all are also gearing up over at BRAC. You're gearing up for next year with the Leadership Academy.
So if for folks who don't know, Baton Rouge, we have been host to the Leadership Baton Rouge program for over 30 years. We invent it and reinvent it each year to make sure it's current and relevant. What we hope to have is a cross-section of the business community, rising and future leaders, as well as established ones who really want to better understand the community in which they are doing business. And so these are programs that give you a chance to understand kind of the landscape of Baton Rouge, as well as the landscape of being prepared to be kind of a well-rounded leader, both in society as well as in your business. So it's a year-long program, and we have been fortunate that it's been continued to be very successful for us. It's something that folks come to. What's probably more valuable than anything is the relationships you get with other peers across the business community. So if folks want to come learn more about it or call us, BRAC.org, you can look up our Leadership Baton Rouge program. The applications are open now. Those happen in the fall to go through kind of a receipt and review process, and then the class starts in January. I really encourage folks that are interested in learning more about the community as well as becoming stronger leaders both internally and externally for their businesses. It's a great opportunity.
You mentioned, and this is worth reiterating, you mentioned the fact that this is not just the up-and-coming leaders, but the established leaders as well. I mean, you can walk right into this thing as more of an Obi-Wan than an Anakin. You can walk into this thing looking for the next generation of leaders that can help within your own business structure as well. This isn't about learning fresh out of college.
No, that's absolutely right. It's actually probably a little better that you not be fresh out of college. It's meant to be somebody who is they own their own business, and they're building it out and expanding it, or they're a CEO but who want to have kind of better continuity or better connectivity across the entirety of the business community to learn more about because of the nature of the community and the challenges and opportunities the community is facing. That's what happens in these classes. And you could sit next to a CEO, kind of a rising CEO, or a business owner, an entrepreneur who's founded their own enterprise. So it's really fun to see the variety of folks from, and especially the cross sectors that you'll see in there. You'll have healthcare, sort of technology. You have folks that have come in from the construction industry or manufacturing, and logistics, as well as some nonprofit and government. So it's a big cross section of everybody that kind of comes in to meet each other.
And how long are those applications open before you all make the call on the cohort or the class?
About a month from now, we would encourage folks to kind of get in between now and November, and then we start kind of reviewing those applications. There's a kind of a process for past members of the class. The Leadership Baton Rouge alumni have a way to kind of review the applications to make sure that they're looking at who is interested and how they make their case. Part of the application is you write up a short description of why you should deserve a seat in the class. It's usually twice as many folks apply as get a seat, so it's pretty competitive. And so we always encourage folks to put together a really strong kind of rationale for why they should be kind of given that seat, what it's going to mean for them and their profession and their ability to give back to the community if they have the ability to go through it.
Adam Knapp from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber is our guest, and the ability to give back to the community, that involves all of us. It's just a matter of finding your niche at that point.
It is.
Let's run down a couple of things that I wanted to get to today. We're actually due up for the next COVID indicator dashboard. I believe it should be out, if not today, then sometime this week. Are there any sneak previews ready?
There is. Just probably in about a week before we'll give kind of a monthly indicators release. Of course, later today we'll hear Lauren Scott's estimate and forecast for next year for what he thinks is going to happen in the economy over the course of 2022. But as a sneak peek, the jobs numbers came out a few days ago from the Feds. Baton Rouge is up about 6,500 jobs over the last 12 months, about 385,000 overall jobs in the community, which is to say we're recovering nicely, but still down somewhere around 20 to 30,000 jobs from where we were in February of 2020. So while we've seen a healthy recovery, it still has been kind of a slow climb back from where we were pre-pandemic. And everything we do is all trying to help make sure we're supporting company recovery. One of the things you're going to hear more from us in the next few weeks is I think I've mentioned this before with you, but the importance of focusing on small businesses and their recovery. We have brought on board a new member of our team who's just focusing on kind of small business technical assistance outreach to try to help companies find out about resources, programs, and partners who can help them continue to recover.
While we're talking recovery, let's move from COVID to Hurricane Ida, the capital region not having nearly as many challenges as, say, like Lafourche Terrebonne, but nonetheless a lot of challenges. Where are we right now region-wide when it comes to getting the hurricane behind us?
Yeah, I think probably most importantly is to think of it as disaster-wide still. The most important moment that happened in the last couple of weeks is the feds came through last week with approval of a federal package for disaster aid. They'll go through and determine how much each state is going to receive. They did put in dollars not only for Ida, and what they've been phrasing kind of in air quotes as a down payment on kind of what is the need for Ida recovery, but they also put in resources for Hurricane Laura last year. And so you're going to see probably most importantly, this is going to be a way for homeowners who have had damages to see some way that they're going to get some additional assistance beyond what their insurance has done. So we expect more to be coming out from the state about that. It's a hugely important part of helping folks to recover from the disaster, whether they're from my hometown of Lake Charles and still not gotten back, or folks along kind of the southeast Louisiana coastline and up through Jefferson, New Orleans, and over in Ascension, Livingston, even in St. Helena, where we were last week. There's still an enormous amount of need, and so this program is welcomed. Glad that it didn't take a year for Hurricane Ida, but fortunately it did for Laura. The faster that the state can stand that up, the more quickly we're going to start to see homeowner recovery.
Got a couple minutes left with Adam Knapp from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, and hopefully we have a little bit to talk about when it comes to recruiting. I mean, we are in the fourth quarter of 2021. How's the table looking? What's how is the table being set for 2022 for new business in Baton Rouge?
It's a great question. So we've seen overall this year a pretty substantial amount of investment in manufacturing, construction activity returning. Of course, in earlier part of this year, we saw Exxon make their announcement that they decided to modernize their facilities in Baton Rouge, spending close to $500 million. Improvements, those are actually standing up and moving forward into construction in the fourth quarter of this year. So you're going to start to see the construction employment numbers go up as they are kind of building that facility that's going to last over the course of another at least year. So that's a really good sign. We also saw Methanex and Ascension Parish make their announcement that they will be moving forward with their project that they put on hold before the pandemic because of the pandemic, which is another $1 billion construction project down in Ascension Parish. Their third methanol facility, which we're excited is moving forward. We expect to see additional projects like that launching projects. We're also watching closely that the Grand Fuels project in West Baton Rouge we expect to make its final decisions before the end of this calendar year, which is a big project for the West Side. Next year, what we hope to see more of is, I'll kind of highlight two or three things, more investments happening with what we've seen already coming from major industrial activities, as well as new investments that a lot of them plan to be making around transitional or renewable energy resources. We've heard almost all of them talking about that as a topic, and we expect to see that's on the horizon that's of interest kind of across the entire industrial corridor. The second big area has been around life sciences. Some of the interest we've seen for companies to be making additional products alongside our life sciences corridor, especially in the health district here in Baton Rouge. And then finally, we continue to see a lot of interest and growth in the technology sector, something that we really want to see more development around in the workforce side to make us a stronger market for the technology sector to grow. So expect to see those three be continued high priorities for us heading into next year.
I mean, if you had that much to get to without even covering Our Lady of the Lakes announcement from yesterday, we've got a lot going on.
No, that's right. And it's interesting the dynamics of what's happening in healthcare will be one of the most interesting stories kind of for business in 2021. Mm-hmm. The good news is as patients, you're going to see kind of continued, care expansion and resources and competition and investment, as we saw announced yesterday with a $100 million project at Our Lady of the Lake for a new cancer center.
He is Adam Knapp from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. We always appreciate the time, especially when you mention the grown fuels. We'll hear an announcement before the end of this calendar year. Looking forward to it. Adam, thank you so much for hopping on, man.
Thanks, Brian.
Absolutely. Here comes CBS News. Hey, I got to run downstairs and let the guest in. I got to let my next guest in the building. That was phenomenal. I love having Adam on. That was like he and it's getting to be a really good rapport. It's very informative too. Yep. It's not boring. The side door is actually easier. We should be using
Yes,
it more often.
it's much simpler. And the thing too, when you go through the front, the lady there was a sweetheart, but she'd want to chat up a storm.
Oh, yes.
And
She's
often-
the best. But yes, you have to invest a little time there.
And the worst part about it was, it's not like I was there, with 30 minutes to spare before I was on the air.
Right. Right. Yeah. Mama Jag is quite the conversationalist.
Oh, yes, with their colorful outfits.
I tell you what, though, have you read her little nameplate? I'm trying to remember her exact title. Director of First Impressions.
Okay,
And it's so right.
all right.
But you get somebody in here like coming up to record a spot or whatever, and they got to wait for a little while because the studio's not available. And you got to
Yeah.
have the sales rep and the talent all coordinated before going down. So most people have a little more time to
Right.
chat than we do when we're trying to hustle in and hustle out.
Yeah, I mean, with y'all's situation, y'all just need to kind of.
Yeah, churn them through,
Yep.
keep it moving.
I had to laugh when I was watching how the news stations got to do their coronavirus.
Is he on YouTube? Yeah. Okay, so
That's fine.
you want me to kill it for an hour?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, but you were
Don't want to do anything, fish.
exactly.
Oh, I was just making a smart-ass remark about how the fear porn has changed with regards to what's being reported on the coronavirus. Things are going really good. Oh, a child died. I was like, okay,
So
is that the best you could do?
I'm having trouble with that because I had 3 children and I don't you throw the numbers out.
Yeah.
It's 1/100th of 1% of kids who have been diagnosed with COVID. 1/100th of 1% have passed, and they don't release other medical information. So I don't know if those kids had other respiratory problems, other heart problems, if they were on death's door to begin with. Okay, so I've got a friend whose kid has had multiple lung surgeries within the first few years of his life.
Right.
They have got to protect him at all costs.
Right.
I've got another friend who just got home from St. Jude. They've got to protect him at all. He's got leukemia.
Right.
There are kids you have to protect at all costs, 100%. But you can't and it sounds heartless to say it out loud. And I
know no one can admit it.
Exactly, but it's like we don't write policy for everybody based off of the worst case scenario.
Right.
Because
you
if you
always
do,
have exceptions.
right, and we all need to know there are kids that have to be more protected than others, and we all have to team up to go out of our way to do that.
Right.
But whether or not I have to put a mask on to walk inside of a racetrack to go pay for my gas because the card thing at the pump isn't working,
for 5 seconds.
right. Well, it's a small price to pay. Well, yeah, it is a small price to
doesn't
pay.
work.
But okay, let's look at it as a small
Yeah.
price to pay in this regard.
Yeah.
It's a nickel. If you've heard the phrase, if I had a nickel for every time,
Right.
well, if I had a nickel for every time I forgot my mask and had to walk back to the car, blah blah blah, I'd be a really rich guy right now.
Yeah. And plus, one of the things I've started seeing in the last week, even here in more liberal Baton Rouge, is I'm seeing people not wearing them inside and no one gives a crap.
First of all, that's no longer a liberal or conservative thing. It's just nobody gives a crap.
Right.
Because I tell you what,
But the liberals are the ones who are like, oh, I need to wear a mask when I'm working out.
but it's like, that's a bad idea
yeah,
from a health
very.
perspective. And I will tell you this from the start, the gym where I work out at,
Yeah.
during the first stint of the mask mandate, they enforced the mask mandate. This time around, they have a sign on their door that says, in compliance with the state mask mandate, we recommend you wear a mask
Interesting.
when you enter the building. I still haven't done the thirds, but thank you. think about that phrasing though. When you enter the building, they'll tell you once you're like on a treadmill or an elliptical or a bike or whatever, you shouldn't be wearing a mask because it's bad for your respiratory system.
Breathing in moist, humid air. Well, they had the whole dichotomy of when you're entering versus when you're working out way back, last summer. So.
Yeah, with the first run of the mask mandate. So I'd gone out and bought this super special mask. It looked like it had like these little vents on the side and everything. It was awesome. And then run it through the washing machine one time, and sure enough, it breaks. It was gross, though. .736 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. So open up my email yesterday, day before yesterday. Maybe it's over the weekend. Decision 2022. Reading the midterm election tea leaves. I'm like, we're 1 month away from the 2021 elections. Only my guy John Couvillon could be looking 13 months ahead right now. What's happening, man?
Good to be here this morning, Brian.
Glad to have you on, dude. So what do we need to know about? Skipping right past this year, which constitutional amendments we're going to cover inside and out over the next month. What do we need to know for next year? Because there's been a lot of battle lines drawn, a lot of lines in the sand already.
Yes.
A lot of partisan politics already. A lot of opinion polls already. What do we need to know for next year right now?
There's two things that are kind of on my mind as we speak, even though the elections are, as you say, more than a year away, is that first off, Joe Biden came into the presidency by a narrow margin. He's upside down in his approval ratings, which, by the way, that is the most important thing when you're talking about how midterms go, is what people think of the president, Democrat or Republican. So he's upside down, meaning he has more people disapproving than approving. But the other thing is, as the warm-up act for these midterms, you have New Jersey and Virginia have statewide elections in November. So I'm kind of looking into specific races there, because Virginia and New Jersey are kind of a distant early warning, as it were, for if there is a wave of on either side. And so I'm looking at Virginia, New Jersey, and at the Biden numbers, kind of to foretell what will happen next fall.
What can you take away from Virginia and New Jersey as far as a not a canary in the coal mine, but some kind of precursor of what we're going to see nationwide? Because you don't hear a lot of Republican. Well, that's not fair either. Are they good testing grounds for what we'll see elsewhere? Are they a good sample of what we're going to see elsewhere?
They can be, depending on how overwhelming the dominance is by one party or another. For instance, New Jersey, it's a Democratic state, but if I see Republican gains in the legislature there, that would be something I've noticed. In Virginia, the Democrat, despite being well-known, having been a former governor, we talk about Terry McAuliffe here, he hasn't put it away in the polls, and he's running against a flawed opponent. And so for him to have a bare margin, and the fact that early voting is way off relative to what it should be, those kinds of things catch my attention. But I'm just looking to see if we have strong Republican performances and or, let's say, upsets in places like Virginia. I think that can be a harbinger of what will happen next fall, because the last time we had a Republican wave, which was in 2013, actually, we go back even further, 2009, Republicans took both Virginia and New Jersey. In 2017, the Democrats took Virginia and New Jersey by pretty substantial margins and made big legislative gains. So in other words, when I see those kinds of things happening where one party has dominance in both states, that does tend to show that, hey, there's a wave coming next year. So those are the kinds of things I'm looking for.
Trying to think, when was Chris Christie?
2009.
Okay. All right. That was part of that wave, which would have been, over about the same time he was running for president. And
Right. And at the same time, the Republican running for Virginia, his slogan was Bob's for Jobs, and he won 59-41. And this
Bob's
was
for Jobs?
Bob McDonnell was his name.
Oh, yeah.
And point being was, Virginia had voted for Obama the year before, as did New Jersey, and then you had Republicans sweeping both races. And so, like I said, those kinds of things catch my attention, because electoral waves rarely come out of the blue. They typically have some time to build up, just like the 2018 Democratic landslide. I saw that coming a year way.
So, yes, you did. In fact, you talked about it on here a good bit, on the station a good bit. So, if you can see a landslide this far out, what are we looking at for 2022?
So, for 2022, already the Democrats are in peril, and that they have very narrow Despite the way they're acting right now, they have very narrow margins of control in the House and the Senate. In the Senate, it's Kamala Harris's tie-breaking vote. In the House, the Democrats could only afford to lose 5 seats. The thing that caught my attention most about the House, and it's a nerd like me who would notice these kinds of things, when the Democrats got elected in 2020, not only did they lose House seats relative to what they had before, but there were 20 Democrats who won by a margin of less than 5 points. What that means in plain terms is the electoral gravity always moves against the party in power between the presidential year and the midterm year. So if you already have 20 Democrats holding on for dear life, it's not going to get any better between now and 2022.
Right.
At best, all the Democrats could hope for is a draw, which is what happened during the Clinton impeachment year of '98 when the Republicans overplayed their hand.
So looking, and you say it's a nerd like you. That's the paragraph in the whole thing that made me call you in the first place. So count me in that same level of nerddom.
Yes.
Yeah, you say more specifically, 38 House seats were won by either party in 2020 by a margin of less than 5 percentage points, 20 by Democrats, 18 by Republicans. Does that also mean, though, that you could be looking at a push because Republicans were winning by a short margin as well?
You know, and the interesting thing about that, I mean, it is appropriate to also mention that, hey, these Republicans won by narrow margins. But what I've seen happen over and over again in midterm elections is the party out of power, the burden is off them in terms of their vulnerable incumbents because voters do swing in varying degrees of strength against the party in power. So that means the Republicans will be let off the hook, so to speak. It's the Democrats who have more to worry about because they're in power and they control both houses of Congress. So it's easy to blame them for things happening with, say, the economy or inflation or the coronavirus.
Okay, let's talk about those things. Do we know yet which ones are going to be the big influencers for next year's election? Because I'm looking at, let's start with coronavirus. There's mandates to begin with, and the number of people who are starting to push back or just straight up ignore them. There is also the amount of money being spent, and we're going through a debt ceiling battle right now, due in no small part to spending trillions on top of trillions on top of trillions, and then, oh, look at that, 3.5 more trillion, sorry, 4.3 more trillion dollars. Do we know whether or not it's going to be the spending? Do we know whether or not it's going to be the mandates? Do we know whether or not it's going to be the overall economy? Availability of jobs, changes in job markets, or some sort of outside influence from maybe another part of the world that will have some sort of sway next year?
Right now, I'm gonna take the safe way out and say all the above because the thing is, issues can pop up here and there. Perfect example, preceding the Republican landslide of 2014 was the disastrous implementation of healthcare.gov. Remember when the exchanges and all that will first come? And it was such a big problem. The blowback was fierce against the Obama administration. I could tell you when I polled the Senate race when Mary Landrieu was up for re-election, I saw her numbers take, it was like a 7 or 8 point hit between before the Obamacare rollout and after, and she never really recovered.
Right.
So point being is issues like that can and do pop up. Right now I see 2 that are the serious ones, and this is absent any foreign policy disaster like, say, what's happened with the Afghanistan withdrawal. The 2 that I'm seeing right now would be the blowback against the continuing coronavirus restrictions, and you're starting to hear now about people losing their jobs relative to not getting vaccinated. That has the potential of being a very big issue. The second thing, which hasn't been talked about, but it does bring back memories of 1979, would be the resurgence of inflation. In other words, given that you have supply shortages and that you're printing money left and right, inflation is rearing its ugly head, and if you can't buy a car at the car lot because there's no supply, or if gas prices are going up, people do react against those bread and butter issues in a very harsh way.
It becomes literal bread and butter issues at that point. It's not even a figurative thing anymore. It's literally bread that you're trying to buy.
And the incumbent gets blamed is the important part about it.
So, but you made an interesting comment right there by referencing 1979.
Yes.
And then you also talked about getting out of Afghanistan, which we've heard that compared to getting out of Saigon. But remember, we also heard a lot of comparisons to Iran, which was also 1979.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of, and this might be, I might be reading the wrong tea leaves with this, but I'm seeing more and more comparisons to where we were at just before the Reagan Revolution.
Correct.
Where we're at right now is worth the precursor, It's always darkest before the dawn, if I could steal one of the former president's phrases.
In fact, in a dizzying turn of events between January of 1979 and into 1980, you had the issues with the Shah of Iran, you had gas prices. Iran cut off the oil to us, and OPEC flexed its muscles. Gas prices went from 60 cents to about $1.20. Then you had the Soviets moving into Nicaragua. Then you had the Soviets moving into Afghanistan. Then you had the hostage crisis. In other words, when you're talking about a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of disastrous events, and all the president could do is go on TV and say it's our fault, that reminds me a lot of what's happening now, where things are not going rosy and sunshine-like. And what President Biden has to have is a win on the coronavirus and or economic front between now and 2022, just to battle to a draw with, and I think the other thing that hurts the Democrats too, the fact that it is already October and they're still wrangling around about what amount of new spending they want to pass, and or they're harassing their own people in bathrooms. That says to me that they don't have their act together, and we're getting ever so closer to midterm elections when it's every person for him or herself at that point.
Pollster John Couvillon is with us. Win with JMC, at Win with JMC, if you want to follow him on Twitter. He's a fantastic Twitter follow. Okay, we got, 2.5 minutes left. I got to ask you locally, because we have one senator who will be up for re-election. I'm not really worried about the congressman for re-election in 2022, because I mean, we got pretty solid footing, especially right here in the 6th. But Senator Kennedy will be up again next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Does he have anything to worry about?
Not really.
Okay.
The Democrats are going to make a show like they did with the Adrian Perkins last-minute entry against Cassidy. It was a bunch of noise and no votes. In fact, the irony was you had an unknown candidate named Derek Edwards who basically received almost Point being is the Democrats in Louisiana have lost a lot of strength in the last 10 to 15 years.
Yes, and as a conservative, I worry that conservatives need an opponent. We need to be raised up, man. We need to be held to a, just not resting on our own laurels. But
we do have the governor's race, though, in 2023, where that is the one beachhead the Democrats still have in this state.
Very true. Very true. Well, so are you hinting at who might be an opponent?
Well, it's going to be opponents.
Okay.
Because you have you have the obvious ones, Billy Nungesser and Jeff Landry, but I think you could have the potential for someone, say, a public service commissioner, a legislator, a congressman, et cetera, who could run.
I've got so many thoughts on who's going to run for governor in 2023. There's a number of them that I'll hear when I talk to them on this show, and I'm like, you are posturing right now. You are laying out the ingredients on the table to start making the meal.
Yes.
So he is Pollster John Couvillon. The 2022 midterms, it's never too soon to start reading the tea leaves, and we always appreciate your time, sir.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. We're coming up on Your Money Now here in exactly 1 minute, enough time for me to ask you what you got going for lunch today. Can I interest you in swinging by either location of Mathern's? They got downtown on 3rd Street or on campus, Nicholson at Skip Burtman Drive in the Nicholson Gateway Shopping Center. I send you there for lunch just to introduce you to Mathern's. While you're there, though, picking up your lunch at the deli counter, maybe download the app. Maybe start in with a rewards program. Maybe start earning money back towards your groceries, because they are, after all, a full-service grocery store at both locations. And that app is super convenient. You can get your grocery shopping done before you leave work. Pull in the parking lot, pick it up, they bring it right out to you. Both locations of Mathern's, downtown on 3rd Street or the Nicholson Gateway Shopping Center. Here's Your Money Now. All right. Thank you. Sorry, I did have to close out. Kill the mics for a second. 756 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Thanks again to Pollster John Couvillon for hopping on board. We were able to continue through some of the break with that, although some of it did have to be pulled off. But if you missed it, it's going to be on demand at talk1073.com after the show this morning. We got to get into the outside in. We step outside of East Baton Rouge Parish. We check in on the surrounding parishes. We do it every day. We do it now. BRPT Lake brings you the outside in. We're going to start in Vernon Parish. A Louisiana sheriff's deputy was stabbed by a suspect before firing 2 rounds and wounding his attacker, authorities said yesterday. The American Press reports the suspect, 46-year-old Malcolm Holcomb of Leesville, was recovering from surgery at a central Louisiana hospital following the Sunday evening attack. He faces multiple charges, including attempted first-degree murder and aggravated assault on a police officer. Here's what happened. A deputy of bail's bondsman went to stop the man with stop Holcomb with a stun gun. The stun gun failed. He wounded the deputy by stabbing him in the rib cage with a machete. This before the deputy fired. The deputy was being treated for minor injuries. Over in West Baton Rouge, authorities are still on the lookout for the suspects who hijacked a truck full of pharmaceutical drugs. Quote, "It basically rivals something you would see from a movie scene like The Fast and the Furious," said Captain Kevin Cyrus with the West Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office. A driver of a pharmaceutical delivery truck was traveling down Highway 190, flagged down by a man on a motorcycle. Thinking there might be something wrong with his truck, he complied. Since the truck carrying the meds was an unmarked Penske rental truck, Cyrus knew it had to be an inside job. That's how they were led to Darrell Harris Jr. and Landry Batley Jr. as the suspects. Harris bonded out of jail on a $175,000 bond. Cyrus said federal charges could be coming. Also in West Baton Rouge, a man was shot multiple times and passed away at the hospital Sunday. West Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office said 36-year-old Ernest Young was shot on Reverend Manuel Drive. There are no more details involved in this shooting. Livingston Parish has moved Halloween. Trick-or-treating for Halloween will now be Saturday, October 30th. The Livingston Parish Council voted Thursday night, actually, to move the holiday. The parish's annual trunk-or-treat event will also be on Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. at South Park on Vincent Road in Denham Springs, which trunk-or-treats are fantastic. They're a great time to teach your children to go up to a stranger's vehicle and accept candy. That's the Outside In, presented by Baton Rouge Physical Therapy, with 6 locations in the greater Baton Rouge area. You'll find them in Ascension. You'll find them in Livingston. You will find them right here in East Baton Rouge Parish. They bring you the Outside In every single day. I have to give credit where credit's due on that joke. That was not my joke about strangers and candy. That belongs to Drew Morrell. Appreciate you, Drew. We've got CBS News coming your way in just a second, right after we check our station ID here on Talk 107.3 FM. Double check the spelling on his name. How'd you spell his last name?
Couvillon. It's spelled Couvillon.
Couvillon, right. A lot of Couvillons have an I-O-N on the back end of it. That's why I always double check with him. Good. Cool. See, I feel like that segment with John ought to be posted separately to YouTube.
Say it again, sorry.
That segment with John should be posted separately to YouTube.
Think so?
Yeah, I mean, it's got 2022 elections written all over it from an SEO standpoint, from a search standpoint. I feel like if that's not in the mix right now, like that could be in the mix right now, and garner a lot of traffic. Not today, but a month from now, 2 months from now.
The thing with the YouTube algorithm, it favors recency, and if you post on something that's going to be a hot topic months from now,
Mm-hmm.
the likelihood of it blowing up in later time is going to go down the longer that video has been posted.
Unless it's clicked on early as well.
Agreed. It's hard to predict the algorithm, man. As somebody who's
Oh, no, I know. And YouTube is owned by Google, and Google protects their secret sauce more than the Colonel protects his herbs and spices.
yeah, and if anyone finds the secret sauce, you're going to be treated like the last guy who tried to out pizza the hut.
Yep. Shut up, first movie in space. Whatever, I saw Star Wars. Idiot story. I saw Star Trek. Idiot. I saw Plan 9 from outer space. Where do you think Dracula landed from?
Hour 2's posted. All that it entails.
Capital Area Family Justice Center. So stupid. crowd. Kevin. Yeah, we had basketball Saturday morning. My daughter plays both. 8:06, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Hour 3 coming your way, and it's going to be a busy hour. We have got Joseph Weisberg coming on in our next segment. 8:20 is when he'll be on. I have it for 9 whole minutes. He's got a new book out called Russia Upside Down, an exit strategy for the Second Cold War. Joseph Weisberg is a former CIA officer. He's also the creator of the hit TV series The Americans. I don't know if you've ever seen that. But an exit strategy for the Second Cold War. Is it possible to exit the Second Cold War? I mean, you look at the amount of disinformation, misdirection, and then just overall posturing. I'm super looking forward to this one. Joseph Weisberg going to join us in our next segment. Also this hour, Haggai Davis, host of Tech Gumbo. We're going to have an emergency cup of Tech Gumbo. We are going to have a bonus cup of Tech Gumbo. Facebook, Instagram, and the WhatsApp were all shut down for an extended period of time yesterday. Aside from how refreshing that was to have 12 hours of nobody hating me, aside from how refreshing that was to have nobody at each other's throats posting links to articles that may or may not be linked to that Second Cold War we just talked about, what went down? What happened? Most of the talk right now, well, I shouldn't say most of the talk. There's a lot of talk about conspiracy theories right now. You're telling me that Facebook went down the day after a whistleblower was on 60 Minutes. Maybe. We'll talk with Haggai Davis at 8:35 this morning. Right now, though, we lead the third hour off with Jake taking us back in time for this day in history. What do you got, Jake?
Starting things off, 1857. The city of Anaheim is founded.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of boring, but hey, it's the first thing of note that I found.
What's next? Tomorrow you're going to tell us about Oxnard?
Yes.
Okay.
1950, Boston Celtics owner Walter
Anaheim. You know, that's not. Yeah, no, we are. Of course we are.
Let's hear it then.
You get the Angels. The Anaheim Angels.
In the outfield?
No. They were the Angels, but they were the Los Angeles Angels when it was that. But it was the California Angels. But they're based in Anaheim.
The Mighty Ducks.
The Mighty Ducks.
Love them.
Yeah. Of course, Disneyland is technically in Anaheim.
Disney World's better.
Well, Disneyland is kind of the original, kind of the OG.
Yeah, but
if you will.
But some people say Empire Strikes Back better than Star Wars.
Yeah, a lot of people say Godfather 2 is better than The Godfather. That doesn't mean you don't respect the OG.
I'm not disrespecting the
Okay,
OG,
but
though,
I mean,
but
like
the
I say
sequel can be
Disneyland,
better.
and the first thing you say is Disney World better.
Because
I
the
don't
sequel
care.
can be better than the
I
original.
don't care. You don't have Disney World if you never have Disneyland.
I don't know about that, man. Walt Disney, we know who he was. Tycoon of his era. Anyways.
All right.
1953, the first documented recovery meeting of Narcotics Anonymous is held. 1962.
How would anyone know? Somebody talked. Who gabbed? Who cheesed?
1962. I have no idea, actually. 1962, the Beatles released their first record, Love Me Do.
Yeah, that song is garbage.
Couldn't tell you. 1962, same year, Dr. No, first James Bond film based on the novel by Ian Fleming and starring Sean Connery, produced in London.
Yeah.
Sean Connery.
Yeah. Dr. No. All right. Yeah.
1969, Monty Python's Flying Circus begins airing on BBC TV.
Fantastic.
Indubitably.
And they would go, what, decades living off of like 3 jokes.
Mm-hmm. They're good jokes, though.
Yeah.
1992, U.S. Air goes on strike. Like,
All right.
1994, NBA shortens the three-point distance to a uniform 22 feet in an attempt to help offensive players score more.
Wait, whoa. A uniform 22 feet?
Yeah.
Like you could have been shooting a different three at the Garden than you would at I guess the Forum.
I think that's what they're implying.
Wow.
Michael Jordan sets career high in three-point attempts and converted three-point field goals, nearly double previous statistics.
Yeah.
Shocker. 2004, seven-time All-Star and six-time world champion forward Scottie Pippen announces his retirement from the NBA.
Scottie Pippen.
I mean, we
The
talk about-
Anaheim to MJ's Los Angeles. That's a callback right there.
I mean, we got to go from Michael Jordan to Scottie, of course.
Yeah.
2014, French F1 driver Jules Bianchi, I don't know, collides with recovery vehicle during Japanese Grand Prix, dies 10 months later. First F1 death due to a racing accident in 21 years.
All right.
Huge shame. 2017, the New York Times publishes an investigation into sexual harassment behavior by Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein.
Hey. All right.
Yeah, that's going to conclude the historic events from my end. Let's get right to those birthdays. First, Kate Winslet, 46. Bernie Mac, unfortunately, has passed, but he was born on this day. Jesse Eisenberg, 37 years old today.
Jesse Eisenberg. None other than Mark Zuckerberg in the social network,
Yes.
right? On the day after Facebook shuts down.
Yeah, kind of fitting. Anyways, we have Travis Kelce turning 31, carrying fantasy football and the Chiefs on his back. Neil deGrasse Tyson turned 62 today. It's bizarre that he's only 62. I feel like, I don't know, how much knowledge does he have to give to the rest of the world? Seems endless. Guy Pearce turns 53 years old on this day. I know him from Iron Man 3, and that's about it.
Okay. I don't even know him from that, so.
That's going to conclude the birthdays for me. Let's get right to the deaths. Steve Jobs
Wait,
passed
did
away.
you have Grant Hill? Did I hear you say Grant Hill?
No, I did not.
All right.
Steve Jobs passed away on this day in 2011. This marks 10 years since Steve Jobs' passing.
Yeah.
We have Rodney Dangerfield, passed on this day in 2004. That'll conclude the deaths.
You a big Rodney Dangerfield fan?
I know of his work. I mean,
God, that just sounds so weird for someone to say that out loud. You know of his work.
Come on, man.
No respect.
Okay, it's not disrespect to think that there's other things out there from my time.
No. It's so forget about your time. This is Rodney Dangerfield we're talking about. He transcends time.
I know of him.
And if you really knew of his work, you'd know when I said no respect, that was a callback to his work. Move on. Who else died?
I'm fake. That's actually all the deaths I had to report on. Everything else was probably in like the 1100s.
Okay.
So that's concluding the deaths. We're going to start off with holidays. First, we're going to start with a nice one. World Teacher Day.
Yes, it is.
And now for the rest, National Be Nice Day.
That's been like 3 times in the last month.
Well, you're going to hear it twice again today. Well, one more time again. National Do Something Nice Today.
So whatever.
Day. Excuse me. National Get Funky Day.
Okay.
Do you get funky?
All the time. But why is today National Get Funky Day?
It's a good question. I'll tell you after the show.
All right.
And finally, National Kiss a Wrestler Day.
Nope, not going to happen.
I strongly agree. But
Professional
that's gonna
wrestler?
conclude it. It didn't say professional. You could kiss an amateur and it would count as festivities.
I mean, it would definitely make the match very interesting.
Quite. But that's going to conclude this day in history.
It is 8:15 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. We are due up for a break. Before we get that break, though, got to ask you what you're doing for lunch today. Maybe swing by for a burger. Maybe swing by Muya. Maybe get yourself a best case scenario. Maybe get yourself a well-dunion. The burger's not well done. It's got onions on it. Onion strings, actually, on it. My choice, the Double Diablo. Oh, you take a Double Diablo. Combine that with sweet potato fries that you dip in honey, and you have the perfect combination of spicy and sweet. And you get it at Muya, where you're going to get fresh ingredients cut. The vegetables are cut every day. The potato buns are baked fresh every day. Certified Angus beef. And I do need to take a second to tell you about the milkshakes. They don't have some, well, first of all, the machine's working, right? But secondly, it's not the soft-serve milkshakes or the from powder milkshakes. Real ice cream milkshakes. All month long, you're going to have the pumpkin spice one, but the rest of them are still on the menu as well. Swing by either location of Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. They are on Segan, just north of Industrialplex. They are on Bluebonnet at Highland. Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. All right, so they're going to be calling us at 9:20. Joseph Weisberg. It's one of those preset interviews that. Okay. Yep. All right, so Kevin, you better say hi this weekend, man. I'd say St. Jude. Don't know a whole lot of folks over at St. Jude. Know a few from basketball, but that's about it. Who else do I know at St. Jude? Oh, Moscona's wife works over there. I did Mathern's last hour. Yes. On the back end of Couvillon's interview. Oh, by the way, when you're posting stuff on demand, I only want the interviews. I'm still hearing it where, yeah, I don't, no, no. If you're going to download stuff on demand, all you want is the interview itself. I don't want a minute and a half worth of tease leading up. Oh, are they early? I'll take it. I'll take it. Oh.
Wonderful. We're on break right now, but we get live momentarily. We'll get you in. Thank you. All right, I'll do that.
It doesn't make sense to hear a tease for what's coming up next hour on the back end of an on-demand interview is solely that interview. That's all they've clicked on for. That's all they're looking for. That's all they need to get. They don't need time checks because whenever they download it, it's not going to be at 8:18 in the morning. So.
So let's say this segment started at like 8:19, but you don't get them on until 8:21. Do I start that interview?
You start where I say time to welcome in author Joseph Weisberg. Bro, Eric, don't even get me started, man. I tell you, no respect. I don't do a Rodney Dangerfield impression. .19 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. So we are in the midst of a second Cold War. Kind of hard to pin down when the first one or when the second one started, though. It wasn't too long after the first one ended. But how do we get out of it? Is it even possible to get out of it? The battlegrounds are completely different now. Joining us to talk about that, former CIA officer Joseph Weisberg. He's also the creator of the hit TV series The Americans. Got a new book out called Russia Upside Down, an exit strategy for the Second Cold War. Joseph, good morning. Welcome to Talk 107.3. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Brian. It's good to be here with you.
Glad to have you on this morning. Glad to be talking about this because it's so hard to fully grasp the nature of the Second Cold War. The first one was easy to understand. You know, you got two sides that or scaring each other out of not hitting the button, right? This
Right.
time around, it's so much more duplicitous, so much more behind the scenes, so much more between our ears. How do we approach the Second Cold War?
I really agree with what you said. It's much more complicated to really understand what it is. In addition, the First Cold War, we sort of knew what we were fighting about. They were communists, we were Democrats and capitalists. Those were different worldviews, so we were going to fight and see whose system won. I think that I don't think that was a great idea, but at least I understand it. What are we fighting about now? There isn't a clear ideological conflict that I totally understand. It seems to me that the idea is Russia is an evil autocracy and wants to kill democracy, so we have to fight them just like we fought the Soviet Union. But I don't think we've got that right.
In what way would we have? How would you have to change that sentence to make it right?
I would look at it this way. I would say that for all kinds of reasons, including the fact that in a lot of ways we like having an enemy to fight against, and probably they do too, the United States and Russia engaged and continue to engage in a mutual tit-for-tat of attacks against each other. We provoke each other, we attack each other, we try to undermine each other's countries. And that's very different from the idea that we are their innocent victims and they naturally just want to destroy us. I'll give you an example. Before this second Cold War started, the United States began expanding NATO to the east towards Russia. First, we started taking former members of the Warsaw Pact into our defense alliance. After that, we started taking former Soviet republics into our defense alliance. Not surprisingly, Russia felt threatened and encircled. That's how any country would feel in that circumstance. So we have to be able to look at our role and the fact that we have really participated fully in building up the current hostilities.
How is Russia fighting us?
I would say the main thing taking place now is what you hear and read a lot about in the media, which is a disinformation campaign and a social media campaign aimed at undermining our elections, undermining our democratic system, trying to pit people against each other. I don't think there's any way to know how successful it's been because we have all those problems and are struggling in all those ways even without Russian interference. But it's certainly not helping, and it may be exacerbating it to some degree, maybe even a substantial one.
Well, I mean, it certainly would be pouring gasoline on a fire because it seems right now that America's biggest enemy is America. They don't need a whole lot of help to push us over the edge, do they?
I agree with that completely. I think you couldn't put it better than pouring gasoline on a fire. What you don't know is, could we get them to stop pouring that gasoline on, and would that make it a little bit easier for us to put it out? I think probably so.
Joseph Weisberg, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll tell you what I would suggest doing.
Go for it.
It's very hard to get out of a conflict like this where both sides are attacking each other and both sides are convinced that they're just playing defense. So the first thing to get out of it is to rethink it the way you and I are discussing and realize it's not just that you're the good guy being constantly attacked by the bad guy. In fact, you're two countries, different systems, different leaders, different populations who've gotten stuck fighting each other. And to get out of it, you have to de-escalate. How do you de-escalate that? I think the best idea is to take some unilateral steps to pull back from the brink. So, for example, over the years, we have instituted all these economic sanctions against Russia, which are really damaging to their economy. And I think we should stop doing it. Let's just stop. Let's rescind all the sanctions and see what happens. I cannot promise you it will do any good. Maybe nothing will happen. But I think there's a reasonable chance that Russia would respond by pulling back on some of their assaults on us, and then we could get into a pattern of de-escalation as opposed to what we're in now, which is a pattern of escalation.
When it comes to a pattern of de-escalation, that would have to be twofold, one in real life and one online. The one online, I think, is harder to get out of because you're talking about disinformation and convincing someone they've been duped is a lot harder than duping them in the first place. How do we undupe America?
You're right that that's very tough, and I'll give you one more complication. It's very easy to look at Russia and say they control everything in their country. But you just have to think about our country, all the states, all the towns, all the counties, all the people. Can the president actually control everything everyone does? Of course not. No president has that kind of power, and that's true in Russia too, which is a huge, vast country with a vast population. So there is no doubt that the government in Russia is supporting and to some degree guiding the disinformation campaign, but they probably don't have the control to just pull the plug on the whole thing. So I would say the goal isn't even to eliminate that campaign, but just to reduce it, and it probably could be reduced substantially. Now, you're also asking how do we then turn the corner ourselves and stop believing that kind of information when plenty of it is being produced in America, even if Russia has nothing to do with it. I don't have an answer to that. I've been shocked watching it progress over the years, as have so many people. It seems to be part and parcel of this new information technology of the internet, which spreads lies so quickly and so easily. And the best thing I can really suggest is that people in general stop thinking of their own politics as facts, stop needing to believe that they are right about everything and the other guy is wrong about everything, and come to realize that politics is much more emotional and personal than that. You come to your ideas and your beliefs about politics because of things you feel, not because of facts where you are all right and the other guy is wrong. And if people can take a first step in that direction to kind of open their minds in that way, I think they might get a little less susceptible to disinformation that tries to just reinforce that they're right about everything.
Joseph Weisberg's our guest. He's the author of Russia Upside Down, an exit strategy for the Second Cold War. Man, I cannot echo those last sentiments anymore, man. That is spot on. One more before I get you out of here. You were a former CIA officer, so you've experienced firsthand the first Cold War. Is there anything we could take away from that Cold War to apply to this one, or is the game completely changed this time?
I'm often surprised by how similar it feels. It seems a little less intense and a little less threatening. I'm not sure it really is. We're still going after each other a lot. There's still nuclear weapons on both sides. There's enormous hostility. But I think the most useful thing for me personally is to look back at how I thought of them as an evil empire. I saw it in such black and white terms. And I think our national policy back then was really built on something similar. I think that's a little more subtle right now because we don't have Ronald Reagan talking about the evil empire to sort of help us have such a one-dimensional view. So, but I think those things are still operative. I think we're still looking at them very simplistically.
Timeline-wise, what are we looking at on this one? I mean, is this going to be a slow unfolding, or will, like, once the curtain's peeled back a little bit and some stuff could be done in the real world, can this be completely unpacked in short order?
I would be shocked if this could be turned around quickly, because it's not just since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 that this has been building up, and it's obviously not just since the beginning of the Internet. The kind of mutual animosity stemming probably from a deep need to have an enemy goes back to the U.S.-Russia relationship before the Soviet Union even existed. So anything that's built up that slowly and successfully, I don't think you're going to pull it back fast.
I know you got to get out of here. You get your next interview lined up. Can you squeeze in 30 seconds on how China plays a role?
Sure. I'm not an expert on China, so I'm reluctant to talk much about it, but 20 seconds feels about right. I think that, in a sense, the danger is repeating the pattern, that once again we find another enemy to make us feel that we're all good, they're all bad, we're all right, they're all wrong, and we escalate a conflict where really there could be peaceful coexistence.
He is Joseph Weisberg, author of Russia Upside Down, an exit strategy for the Second Cold War, which you can get pretty much anywhere right now. Joseph, thank you so much for hopping on with us this morning.
Thanks, Brian. It was great talking to you.
You too, man. That was fantastic. Hey, did you hear something in there that was kind of a theme that tapped into a previous interview? Did you hear something in there that might have tied back into what we were talking about with John Couvillon? When looking ahead to the 2022 midterm elections, how much have we heard reference to 1979? And Joseph just mentioned we don't have a Ronald Reagan right now. Are we spelling out for history to repeat itself 40 years later? 44 years later? Ugh, I don't like saying 44 years later because that's going to make me even older. 42 years later. Slightly better. Anyway. Yeah, we heard about Iran. We heard about inflation. We heard about gas prices. And now we've heard from a former CIA officer talking about the Second Cold War. And we don't have a Ronald Reagan right now. Very interesting. So much to unpack from that, but we're going to have to push pause for just a minute for what might be a related topic. And I say it might be a related topic just to stoke the fires of conspiracy. Facebook, Instagram, and the WhatsApp were down yesterday. What was at the root of it? Haggai Davis, host of Tech Gumbo, is going to hop on board. He's hopping in studio in our next segment for an emergency session of a cup of Tech Gumbo. It's coming your way right after we check news, traffic, and weather on Talk 107.3. That was fantastic. They sent me a PDF copy of the book. I hate PDF books. I want the actual copy of the damn book. I'm not going to read it unless I have pages to turn. I can't do ebooks. And I sure as shit can't do PDF books.
That's the only way I read is on my iPad.
Really? Then how do you lick your finger before turning the page? It's not that good of a joke, and I'm dying on it. That's awesome. But I gotta have pages to turn. You know what? I gotta have a little dog ear or a bookmark.
I haven't held an actual book in my hand in a decade.
I can't help you there.
Once the first time I read with an iPad in my hand, that's it. I'm done.
Tim Johnson, host of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show, once told me, and I take great, I will carry this with me for the rest of my life. He loves cutting his grass. Do you know why he loves cutting his grass?
Because it's quiet time inside his head.
It's part of it. The bigger part, though, is every time you push that lawnmower up the lawn and back again, you can look out at your lawn and tangibly see what you've accomplished. You could physically see that is where I'm at. This is my progress. This is what's left. And you can walk, like, as you move across the lawn, you'll see I've got this much done and this much left. And it slowly trickles down until you're done. With an actual book, I keep moving that bookmark back. I take great satisfaction in that.
On my iPad, I see 40% left, 30% left, 20% left, 10%.
It just doesn't feel the same for me. I don't know why. I like my mom is a big Nook or whatever Kindle. I don't know what Kindle.
I use the Kindle app on my iPad when I read.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't read his books as often as I would like to. Spend more time reading crap like this. But.
Yeah. There is a group out there, and I got to interview them here, and they're on Cool Story Bro as well. Inventherm. They are doing work with a soft serve ice cream machine that makes it maintenance free.
Right. Yeah.
Like you never have to clean it, right? The same science that applies to that soft serve ice cream machine applies to the frozen saline solution that would be used for this sort of procedure. So get ready for the ice cream man to save organs in transplant in transit.
The ice cream man's bringing you your new heart.
Yeah. You ever find it weird that the ice cream man, when you're driving around the neighborhood, always played the theme song to the what was the name of that movie?
Oh, The Sting.
The Sting. The ice cream man is playing the theme song to the greatest con movie ever made. What does that tell you about the ice cream man?
Creepy dude who doesn't make much money, even with the incredibly marked up prices.
Yeah, why not? Gotta love getting blamed for shit that has nothing to do with me.
Yeah. It just rolls downhill. And sometimes the sewage goes back up.
Yesterday, Facebook went down. Instagram went down. The WhatsApp went down, which we could talk a little bit about that as well. Shady place, if you're not following the right people. A massive global outage plunged Facebook, its Instagram, and WhatsApp platforms, and many people who rely heavily on these services, including Facebook's own workforce, plunged them all into chaos Monday. Joining us to talk about it for an emergency convening of Cup of Tech Gumbo is Haggai Davis. Haggai, what's happening?
Well, I'm just in here to talk about Facebook.
You know, okay, I want to start with the conspiracy theory because, and pour kerosene on the fire if I can. There's no way a whistleblower goes on 60 Minutes on Sunday night and Facebook happens to go down on Monday without something being behind the timing of those things, right?
True story. Facebook hired some world-renowned contractors. You've heard of them. Mo, Larry, and Curly.
Yes.
And they come in, and of course, Curly's got the 12-foot-long 2x4 on his shoulder, and every time he gets distracted, he swings around, and they knock all kind of things, and chaos ensues, and Facebook goes down.
Yes. That cannot be what happened.
It would be a better story if it was.
You're kidding me.
Okay, so there's two things that happen. There's what's called DNS, or Domain Name Service, and there's also Border Gateway Protocol, or BGP. Your DNS is that's your Facebook.com. That's your name, so that instead of, or like Google's, if you type in google.com, the DNS translate because their address is actually 8.8.8.8 when you're using the IP Internet protocols. So the BGP, or the Border Gateway Protocol, and I'm sorry for throwing all these acronyms around, but the Border Gateway Protocol is the routing tables. That's what tells the Internet service providers, okay, Facebook.com is over here. It's kind of like, a good analogy is the Postal Service. So you write on your address that you're going to, Government Street.
Right.
9830, whatever.
929.
929 Government Street. So that's your DNS. is that you know that means your address is here. The BGP is the postal service that routes your letter here to this location.
Okay.
Yesterday, a little bit before noon Eastern time, they were doing an update to the BGP at Facebook, and they brought the whole thing down. So they eliminated the BGP from all of the internet service providers across the planet. So nobody knew how that Facebook existed for 6.5 hours.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. It was an update. Most people will never ever hear about BGP. Most people will never ever fool with BGP. And I mean, that's something that the internet service providers, the Cox, the AT&Ts of the world, the Verizons, or the big companies like a Facebook or a Google, those are the levels of people who mess with BGP. And for somebody who sneezed when he hit a button or did something, or Curly swung around with the 2x4 and knocked something off of a rack, that's what brought Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp down for 6+ hours.
So it happened internally.
Yes, it was an internal thing. It was not an attack. It was nothing malicious, nothing external.
Oh, no. So my level of conspiracy here is not external at all. My level of conspiracy here is Facebook flexing on everybody, saying, you want to drag us across the carpet? Pull it. Shut it down. Let everybody just scream at each other without Facebook to scream at each other for a little while. We'll open back up again because, we got to make billions of dollars every hour.
Well, they lost billions of dollars.
They did lose billions of dollars.
Their price of their stock went down 5% yesterday.
Which is phenomenal to me. Because if anything, when you see this level of panic over a social media platform going down, that should drive the price of the stock up because it tells you how vital the platform is.
It went just the other way.
I know. I don't understand it. I'll never understand what goes into consumer confidence on Wall Street.
Well, and you don't know how much of that was their stock going down because of the whistleblower the night before.
Right.
And
that's true, too. So here's the second question. Let's talk about the whistleblower from the night before. When Facebook goes down, is there anything they could be working on the back end in the meanwhile that might be hustling to fix something, like fix algorithms or?
No, that's not. That was not part of what was going on. I mean, the BGP does not affect the algorithms. The BGP is strictly about routing tables to get to Facebook, not the content of Facebook.
Right, but while it's down.
It's down,
pull it offline.
No, because they're really two separate things.
Okay.
The content is sitting back on the servers, and they're tweaking and fixing that constantly, all day, every day, 24 hours a day. The routing tables that's really more so when you're on Cox or AT&T, Verizon, or whoever. That's what the BGP is directing you to their site. So one doesn't have anything to do with the other.
Okay, let me ask this question next. How frequently does something like this happen where a BGP goes down?
Very, very seldom. Very, 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 very seldom, because this is not something that people screw around with. I mean, this would be like, okay, the post office went down for a day, so nothing gets delivered for a day.
Right.
And, or if FedEx goes down for a day, or, any kind of delivery system. That's what happened yesterday. The ability to get to, and this did not just affect people wanting to go to Facebook's website, because Facebook went off the internet. All the remote offices around the world, people could not use their swipe card to get into the buildings because they could not contact Facebook directly. So people were like, "Oh God, did I get fired today?" All around the world, people were locked out of their office.
That would be my first thought. And you said it was about 6.5 hours from start to finish.
Yes.
So, if it happens very seldom, how does it happen on a level like Facebook? How if it happens very seldom on a platform like, I don't know, what like a Map My Run app or something like that?
They would never fool with that. They're not big enough.
Oh, okay.
To be somebody who plays around with the BGP, you have to be a Google. You have to be an Amazon or a Facebook. You have to be that big. The Guarantee Media website, the guys here who do the website, GatorWorks, they never ever touch BGP.
Okay.
Not at all. This is a high level. This is like 5-star general kind of level of people who fool around with BGP.
So if the likelihood of it happening is low, I would imagine the likelihood of it ever happening again would be as close to zero as possible.
Oh, it's going to happen again. I mean, it has to happen again because users get out there and they click on things. Even the really smart folks in the tech world, they sometimes click on the wrong thing and make mistakes. And I mean, they're all human, most of them anyway.
Less and less every day.
And so when simple mistakes happen in what should have been a routine upgrade, a normal, this is, we're just changing, a setting, and that one setting takes the whole thing down. It's just not a good thing.
Two more before we get you out of here.
Yeah.
First of all, how beautiful is it that Facebook had to let everybody know it was down by posting on Twitter?
That was precious. I mean, when you have to go to your competitor's platform to say, sorry guys, we're down and we're trying to get it back up. Oh, I loved that. I really did.
And secondly, I think the window was too short. I would have liked to have seen at least 24 hours without Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
But 6.5 hours without Facebook, were there repercussions because of it?
Yes, there were. Because the biggest problem is WhatsApp. Because people use WhatsApp to communicate around the world. Text messaging doesn't always go across, the planet, or you can't text message sometimes from one country to another, or the charges are exorbitant. So people use WhatsApp to communicate internationally a whole lot more than text messaging the way we use it here in the United States. So that did affect a lot of people around the planet. There's 2 billion people who use WhatsApp every day.
Yes.
Whereas, some people who advertise on Facebook and they do business through Facebook, they were impacted for 6 hours, and that's not a good thing. But it probably made teenage girls a little healthier for 6 hours
Because Instagram was down.
because Instagram was down. Yes.
Did they have a total of how much was affected over all three platforms?
Well, just everything. As far
Like
as
a dollar amount?
No.
Okay.
Way too soon to put something together like that.
I got to tell you, I enjoyed it thoroughly.
I had no problem with it.
I had tried to hop on Facebook. So Franz was recording his show, and I tried to share it back to Talk's Facebook, and I couldn't open it on the desktop. So I went to post on mobile and said, is anybody having trouble accessing Facebook? And it just gave me it grayed out little spinny wheel. And I was like, maybe I should go over to Twitter and ask. And said, anybody having problems with Facebook? And sure enough, everybody was saying, yes, big problem with Facebook. So once I knew it was down, I was like, all right, moving on.
I didn't even know it was down for the first several hours until I went over to one of the news platforms because I was in the middle of my day working, and I look at, I say, oh, wow, Facebook's down.
Yeah. Congrats. I'll have less clickbait shared from like Yahoo or Breitbart, and I'll just be back to my day. Yeah. Awesome. So we're going to catch a full segment of Tech Gumbo, Cup of Tech Gumbo, Friday morning, 6:35. Of course, Tech Gumbo is available anytime on demand at talk1073.com. Of course, it airs Saturdays and Sundays at 4. He is Haggai Davis, host of Tech Gumbo. I appreciate you coming in on a Tuesday, man.
Absolutely.
We got to check Your Money Now. After Your Money Now, we're going to come back and close it out. We got one more segment to go on Mornings with Brian Haldane right here on Talk 107.3. So
I figured you'd appreciate the Mo, Larry.
I did. So, but my question is, how do you get all three of them up to the 6th floor of the book depository? The number of people who were like, you can't tell me that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the conspiracy people all night long. I was
What?
watching.
They shut it down so they can clean up their algorithm. I'm like, they didn't clean up their algorithm while it's live.
They work on that algorithm every day, all day, 24 hours a day.
Yes.
That algorithm is always changing.
Right.
I mean, but yes, when you don't understand things, it's a whole lot easier to make up conspiracies.
I just like feeling that fire.
Brian, real quick. For this segment, do you want me to include the intro? I know you said to do that with some segments.
Yes, if it's a segment that has a produced intro, you include the intro.
Mañana.
Appreciate. Well,
Rotary.
yeah, I haven't. So, I'm supposed to introduce guests tomorrow. I have an appointment that I've yet to be able to get out of. I'm
It's okay,
like,
just call Christy.
well, so she asked if I could find somebody else to replace me for tomorrow, and I'm like,
Ask Franz.
yeah, I might do that. I just,
Franz and a microphone? Are you kidding?
yeah, I know, but I don't want to miss out on it because I volunteered for the committee and I'm on like the tech committee as well, which I might. My appointment's not until 12:30. I might just go introduce guests in bed.
Where is your appointment, though? Because that means your meeting doesn't start till 12:15, and the entry guest is 12:20. So then,
True.
if you're walking out, you got maybe
Mid-city.
5 minutes. You got 5 minutes to get there.
I got 5 minutes of traffic on Jefferson Highway getting back towards the town center.
You could maybe do it, but
I don't know. I've left a text message with the guy. I'm trying to like reschedule the meeting or at least push it back by half an hour or whatever. It's very rare that I'll book something the same week. So if I pop up on Rotary's schedule, I don't know. I'll likely end up being there. And my meeting is probably going to get moved back or canceled or whatever the shit. Oh, thank you, Haggai. I got to do something fun last night. Coaching 4th grade girls basketball.
What's the latest?
Well, one of my best players was in a shooting slump. She went all last game without scoring. She scores 6 to 8 points every game.
Okay.
So
She's going a
she
little
started
cold.
off this game 0 for like 7. I know. And I'm like, it just constantly like, you keep shooting, do not stop shooting. And I could see it on her face. Every time she'd shoot, she would grimace and like be hesitant and come up short and just either airball or front of the rim and fall down. Like, I'm like, stop it. Just keep shooting. Forget about it. Keep shooting. Well, finally, her second stint in the game, I pulled her up like midway through the third quarter. And when she went back into the fourth quarter, I'm like, okay, it's over now. Forget about it. It's over now. If you want to stop shooting for the night, that's fine. I'm going to encourage you to keep shooting. But if you're inside your own head this far, if you want to stop shooting, that's fine. And sure enough, as soon as like this first trip down the court, she steals the ball, takes off on a fast break, lays it up and in. As soon as that ball went in, she rattled off the next 6 points of the game.
Ooh, we love to hear that.
Yeah.
Was it a close game?
No, we went 21-4.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sounds like she was really holding the team back.
Yeah. No, so she's good. My daughter's good. We had another couple girls that like are about as consistent as you can expect for 4th graders.
Hey, we take those wins for sure.
Yeah, I told all the parents at the beginning of the season, I don't care about winning in 4th grade. I really if you care about winning in 4th grade, you're going to peak in 5th.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
It just happens that by working on fundamentals throughout, I've got them playing on a good level. Interestingly enough, one of my parents is going to be in tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah. We do a segment with Hilda Moore's office every month, and she is with some kind of family services or whatever.
That is quite a peculiar case of it's a small world.
Oh, look, when worlds collide, it's always fun.
Fun is one word to use.
Yeah.
There's a big asterisk on fun, depending on who it is. But in this instance, it sounds fun.
856 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Every day, Baton Rouge Physical Therapy brings you the outside in right here on Talk 107.3 FM. Need to tell you a little bit more about them. They've got 6 locations throughout the greater Baton Rouge area, which is fantastic because if you're in Baton Rouge, Ascension, or Livingston, you can find them. How to find them? Visit brptlake.com, brptlake.com. Baton Rouge Physical Therapy has been around for 60 years, going on 60 years. They introduced physical therapy to Baton Rouge, and they want to take that experience and share it with you. They'll sit you down. They'll talk with you about what it is, what the nagging injury is that you've got, and how to work through it. What's your comfort level when it comes to physical therapy? Set up a free screening by calling 917-9185, 917-9185, or visit brptlake.com. Get back to being your best. Get back to being better than your best. Think physical therapy. Think brptlake.com. Thanks again to Haggai Davis for stopping by for a cup of tech gumbo. Always appreciate his time. He's usually in Friday mornings at 6:35, and we always have a wealth of topics to talk about. But when something is pressing, as what went down yesterday happens, it's nice to be able to call on him for a bonus segment, keeping up with the headlines, keeping up with the news. The WhatsApp thing is interesting to me. It's so weird how your impression of a social media venue is based off of like who hits you up. The amount of spam that comes from "come see me on WhatsApp," and like I don't venture into that world very often because of the direct messages I'll get from what is clearly bots, spam, and the like, and it all goes back to WhatsApp. But WhatsApp is very, very utilized throughout the world. It just, when we get a look at it, it's all, spam and porn. Hey, coming up on the show tomorrow, Attorney Franz Borghardt is going to be in for Legally Served. Congressman Garrett Graves is going to hop on board as well. And I've got a few more things in the works. In fact, one of those things is a makeup interview from last week that about another new book coming out. I got a whole series of interviews throughout the week, talking about authors and the work that they're working on. But that's not till tomorrow. We'll worry about that then. Hey, before we get out of here, got to tell you about the folks over at the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. They've got 2 locations, 4065 Florida Boulevard in Mid-City, or the corner of Jefferson and Housatoo in the southeastern portion of the parish. Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet has stacks and stacks of mattresses, stacks and stacks of deals. Here's the thing. You got to swing by and test drive one, though. Or test drive a dozen. Mid-City, 4065 Florida Boulevard. Stop on by. Tell Mitch I said you can lay down on every mattress you want to. Take a nap if you want to. Find the mattress that's right for you. Do you like the pillow top? Do you like the hybrid? Do you like the cooling gel? I'm a hybrid guy. And after you find the one that's just right for you, you'll find the deal that's just right for you, the financing that's just right for you. And if you mention you heard about it on this show, you will get free delivery at both locations of the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. That is going to do it for us. The Fox News Rundown is next, followed, of course, by Brian Kilmeade. Don't forget to round out your day with Jay Ducote later on today. Let's get you to CBS News. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back to clean this up in a minute. Hey, YouTube, we'll see y'all tomorrow. This author interview tomorrow, I had to reschedule it from last week. You're going to love it. So